Hey everyone, Eric Cox here with Net Capital, and I'm very excited to be joined by Cynthia Winning of Vymedic. I'll allow 1 or 2 moments for people to get settled, and then we'll dive right in. Thanks. All righty. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Again, this is a live Q&A with Vymedic hosted by Net Capital. I'm one of the members of the Net Capital team. As always, for being joined by a company, being joined by a company that is actively raising on the Net Capital platform. I added a link into the chat to make it easy to access, but in case you want to just hear it audibly, it is netcapital.com/companies/Vymedic. Or you can go to netcapital.com and search Vymedic, and you'll be able to directly invest from there, see a little bit more information. There's also some question and answer functionality on the offering page. A couple really quick housekeeping items before we dive in. Please use the Q&A functionality through Zoom. We want this to be as interactive as possible. And there is also a chat function, but the Q&A does work better, so I can make sure that I get to all of your questions. I can track them more easily. So please do use Q&A rather than chat. Awesome. Looks like we have one more team member from the Vymedic team joining here. But let's go ahead and dive right in. So Cynthia, why don't you come on in and tell us a little bit about Vymedic.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Our biotech was founded on the discovery that certain amino acids have antiviral properties. And that discovery led to the creation of the first and only known natural broad-spectrum antiviral. And that led to the creation of our product called Vymune, a contraction of viral immunity. And our product is actually 2 products in one. It's a very safe and effective antiviral, and it also delivers a superior immune support. And this is the product that we're bringing to market.
Fantastic. And I like to kind of jump right over to the team. I know it's one of the most important questions that investors like to know. Cynthia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about the rest of the team as well.
Okay, well, my background is new product development and fintech, and I've also worked in cable television, and I've used a lot of complex technologies and tried to develop simple, effective, and welcome consumer products. So that's my background. And we have a top team of seasoned executives. Steve Lehman has joined us. Perhaps he'll fill us in on his background.
Sure, thanks, Eric. I have been CEO of both NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange companies. I am executive chairman of Vymedic. I'm also an investor. I was a first-round investor in a young entrepreneur I met named Mark Cuban, and became a first-round investor in broadcast.com. Made a $2 million investment in that company, exited for just under 300 million about 4 years later. I met Cynthia and was unbelievably impressed with the 10 years of research and development that she had put in to Vymune, based on her background of taking complex technologies and boiling them down to consumer-friendly, products. I started to do a deep dive on Vymune. I was incredibly impressed. Think that this has billion-dollar potential, which is kind of my criteria now for actually getting involved in a company. So I'm proud to be part of the Vymedic team.
Yeah, that's great, Steve. And I know there's a couple other team members that aren't on the call. Can we talk a little bit about Lee and David and what they bring to the team?
Yes, Lee is our CFO, and he's had 22 years in public accounting, and he was also a controller for a major CPA firm. And then Dave Bartlett is our legal expert, and he comes from Silicon Valley. He's actually started a few tech companies, but his strong suit is helping startups and development and exit strategies. Now we
Yes,
also
and
we
go ahead,
also
go,
have
go
a
ahead, Peter.
We also have a world-class scientific team, and that's composed of virologists, immunologists, medicinal chemists, toxicologists, and medical doctors, and they've developed the Vymune formula.
Yeah, and we could dig deeper a little bit into that scientific and medical team. I do love to see a Cooley team member on the team here, my alma mater, and I know David is leading you from Silicon Valley in those efforts and legal efforts. The scientific team, Dr. Levin and Greg Soler, a couple, a handful of others. Can we dig a little deeper into what they bring to the table from a medical and scientific standpoint?
Well, yes, Greg Soler is a top virologist, Rhodes Scholar, and he is primarily responsible for really helping us flesh out the formula. Dr. Levin is a well-known worldwide for his work in herpes research. And herpes is one of the viruses that we studied, and he and his team conducted our herpes research studies, which turned out to be very exceptional. So the rest of the team, toxicology, immunology, they've all contributed significantly to the final product. And then one other person on the team, Dr. Heather Karuna, she's a medicinal chemist. She worked years in pharma designing drugs, but she is now our patent agent. She works for Merchant and Gould, our patent company, and she's monitoring our patents, and she's helped to write them as well. And she's keeping an eye out for them for any threats that might come along the way. So she's been important to the team as well.
That's fantastic. And very impressively, you somehow managed to keep doctors from the University of Michigan and Ohio State, and they're still doing great work for you side by side. So that's a testament to your leadership. Let's go ahead and hop over to the problem. We know we're talking about viral. That's super relevant right now with the coronavirus. Can you talk about the big picture problem when it comes to viral infections?
Well, the impact of viral infections, as you said, Eric, is severe. In deaths and lost productivity. Last year in the United States, in a non-COVID year, there were over 80 million viral infections, 34,000 deaths from flu alone, and $17 billion in lost productivity. And so it's our objective with Vymune to help reduce that death rate and to improve productivity, all caused by viral infections.
And how does it work? How does Vymune actually kind of prevent or treat these viral infections?
Well, we have 4 mechanisms of action. 3 of them are proven, and 1 has been observed. Specifically, when it comes to influenza, Vymune is a very effective neuraminidase reducer. Neuraminidase is the N in H1N1, H3N2, if you're familiar with how flu is named. Those are the various strains. And all of our research involving influenza, we use the positive control, the drug Tamiflu. And we were able to successfully actually beat Tamiflu in all of the research. We outperformed the drug in neuraminidase reduction. And neuraminidase being part of the flu, H1N1, if you can reduce neuraminidase, you can reduce any strain of flu. Secondly, through our research, we have proved that we are very good at viral RNA reduction, which helps us reduce many other viruses. And we also block an amino acid that viruses need to mutate and to replicate. So by blocking the access to the fuel that a virus needs, it quickly dissipates a viral infection. And our product also triggers thymus factors, and that produces interferon. And interferon is involved in triggering the immune system to create certain actions that begin to stop and clear viral infections.
Wow. So kind of attacking from all sides here. No, that's very impressive. And tell me a little bit, how long did it take to develop Vymune? I know you said that Steve joined pretty early on in the process. I know you've been working on it for a little bit.
Well, it's taken 10 years. Once we discovered that we had the first and only known natural broad spectrum antiviral, we knew that we had to follow drug protocols. We could have easily put it in a bottle that day and put it on the shelf because it's a supplement, because it's all natural products and not a drug. But we knew with this discovery, we really had to follow drug protocols involving in vitro research, cellular research of these viruses, in vivo animal preclinical research, as well as human clinical trials. And that's what's taken 10 years to bring this safe and effective product to market.
That's fantastic. And we're having some investor questions coming in here. Can we buy Vymune now? And is it state specific or worldwide or global?
What's happening with Vymune is we've taken the net capital raised so far, and we're producing 25,000 bottles right now as we speak, and they are headed to Amazon.com. And we've also hired one of the top marketing and advertising agencies in the world, Ogilvy, to develop a custom product rollout for us, as well as a comprehensive media strategy to get the word out about Vymune and to help raise Vymune up through the clutter of all the immune support products that are flooding the market now and into a more dominant position.
You know, Eric, I will tell you that there have been 30 people in the beta program, the Vymune beta program, for a couple of years. And, you know, if you take a look at the primary competitors, you know, on the non-drug side, you have emergency and airborne. That's about a $400 to $500 million a year marketplace in this current pandemic. And Tamiflu is over $1 billion. And so, you know, in a worst case scenario, because this is still considered a supplement on its way to hopefully becoming a over-the-counter drug. You know, we have a product that has greater efficacy than airborne or emergency. There have been 30 people in this beta program, and it's not like they are consumers; they are evangelists. And literally, Cynthia has run out of her own stock of Vymune, you know, giving it to people who have given it to other people, who have given it to other people. It's really a groundbreaking product. It is the first and only broad spectrum antiviral ever developed. And we think that this is going to be an unbelievably powerful and positive product, you know, for the world, not even withstanding the twindemic that we're going into right now. The other thing that I think is really noteworthy that Cynthia can address is our FDA consultant has us in on application for an emergency use to try to get validated as an over-the-counter drug. And we're probably 3 to 5 months away from that. Cynthia, can you explain a little more about what that is and the emergency use application?
Yes, right now we're FDA compliant as a supplement. We meet all their criteria, but we cannot make drug claims. In order to do that, you have got to do certain clinical work, and we've done most of that. But because of this threatening twindemic of having flu come in on top of COVID and the calamity it's going to cause in the U.S. healthcare system, the emergency use allows us to go to market right away, which we're doing, but also to finally be able to make the drug claims and tell people exactly what it does so that they can get relief from viral infections like flu, colds. This stops herpes as well as a lot of enteroviruses, but particularly any strain of flu. So that's what the EUA is all about. We've applied for that. We're in the process now at the FDA to get the emergency approval to make claims. We'll still go to market, but we want to tell people about the flu and how they can prevent it.
And if you take a look, you know, assuming we get this emergency authorization, and by the way, there are companies who applied for this years ago. You know, I think, Cynthia, you were saying it was 5 to 7 years ago. Some companies applied and still have that temporary use, and the FDA's never come back around. But if we go from a supplement to an OTC drug, total game changer in terms of this product. And, you know, I know one of the questions that you asked, Eric, was, you know, what about exit? Well, you know, I guarantee you with status that we believe we're going to be able to get as an over-the-counter drug, I think you have pharmas, nutraceuticals that will all of a sudden take a look at this product. 10 years in development, 24 patents. And I think that there will be, you know, great enthusiasm from potential strategic investors, partners, or acquirers of this product.
Mm-hmm. And speak to the patents, those patents are global patents. So that will make us attractive to any global pharmaceutical or consumer product company. We have all of North America, US plus Canada, Mexico, as well as the EU, Britain, and Asia in patent.
That's great. And I think the international approach that you're taking to intellectual property strategy makes a ton of sense. The virus is not restrained to any borders. We've seen this in the current global pandemic, as well as the annual flu. So I think that's a very impressive strategy. And it does sound like you have a very clear exit opportunities in terms of pharmaceuticals as well as nutraceuticals. Those are very exciting details. Any more that you'd like to share with regard to the IP strategy or some of the claims that you're able to include in your numerous patents before we talk about revenue?
We have strong claims. I think it's also important to tell you it's a high margin product. We can make this product for $3 and distribute it for $3 for a total of $6. It will retail for $20.
That is great. And so from the business model, then it's direct to consumer for now. It sounds like retail, and then the plan is to work its way towards through FDA clearance and into the over-the-counter drug marketplace.
Yes, as I mentioned, we're producing 25,000 units that are headed directly to Amazon.com. Ogilvy has set a store up for us there. And as I said, they're going to do the custom rollout for us as well as the media strategy. So those units are headed to Amazon.com. We expect to incubate on Amazon for a year and a half, then migrate to US brick and mortar, and then migrate to Canadian brick and mortar.
You know, and I also want to mention that, look, it shouldn't be overlooked that Ogilvy has accepted Vymune as a client. This is one of the largest advertising and marketing agencies in the world. They represent the majority of pharmas and nutraceuticals. We had to go through a process to get Ogilvy to look at this because they represent so many pharmas. They have scientists that are literally in-house that scrutinize and look at everything. And for Ogilvy to accept us as a product, they think that this product has massive potential. You know, we have 10 people within Ogilvy that are part of our team, from the Amazon team to the media team to the PR team. And I mean, it's some unbelievably talented people who are literally shaping the launch strategy as we are here today. You know, Cynthia and I have been on with them already 2 or 3 times this week. You know, we have standing appointments, two appointments every week, standing with Ogilvy, and they are so enthusiastic about this product. But the team is 1,000% behind us. They think that this is going to be a massive global brand, and they will continue to be our agency of record. So, you know, the stars are really lining up well for the launch and national rollout of this product.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. For those who aren't familiar with that marketing firm, that is an incredibly exciting piece. Almost you can include that in the team section of how important they are when it comes to rolling out national and then global products. Before we go into, and I want to take a deeper dive into the market, you discussed some kind of revenue model numbers from some of the other players in the space, but I'd love to talk about nutraceuticals as a whole and how big that market is. But before we do that, I'd like to remind our potential investors on the line here, as well as those that might be seeing the recording in the future, that you can go directly to netcapital.com and invest right now. That's netcapital.com/companies/Vymedic, or you could search Vymedic on the netcapital.com platform. So circling back now, after I made that shameless plug, can you tell us a little bit about the nutraceuticals as a whole industry and how big that market really is?
Well, I can speak to just in 2018, our top three competitors, two are nutraceuticals, airborne and emergency, and then of course the drug Tamiflu. In 2018, they generated $1.25 billion in sales, just those three products. Immune support is a very robust category right now. It's growing tremendously, but all the products in immune support, all they can do, if you look at their chemical structure, is give you some immune boosting activity. We'll be the only immune support product that can actually stop the pathogen that you're trying to protect yourself from.
Hey, Eric, if you take a look, and we have the airborne, the actual airborne launch numbers. So if you take a look at airborne that launched in a non-pandemic year, that has zero scientific efficacy and is actually an immune suppressant. They launched year one, they did 3.3 million in revs. Year two, they did 49 million. Year three, over 100. Year four, they did over 150. Again, non-pandemic years, zero efficacy. So, I mean, that is a direct comp, be it a lower scale comp, but you know, those are actual numbers from our first tier competitor while we remain a non-FDA drug, you know, a clinical drug.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I know we talked about some of the patents that you've already been able to have granted. We've also discussed a little bit about the development of the product, and you're shipping with Amazon relatively shortly here. What other progress can you share with us? What are other milestones that you've hit, and what are some future milestones coming that you could see in 2021?
Well, what happened, we had something interesting happen about a month ago. One of our investors called. He was panicked about his mother. She's 89 years old. She had just been diagnosed with COVID, and he wanted to know where he could buy Vymune. And I explained it's not commercially available, but he was very desperate for help. So I overnighted a couple of bottles of Vymune to him, and told him that we had some in vivo animal research that showed that we had some ability to reduce COVID. But at that point, we didn't get enough data to know exactly how much, but we suspected it was probably less than 20%. But again, we didn't get a number. Within a week, he started posting on Facebook that his mother was on Vymune for 3 days, and on the fourth day, she was symptom-free. Since then, we also had a field report from a user that they were exposed to the virus, and they started immediately on Vymune and did not get COVID. So they attribute that to the product. So as a result, we have just gone back into the lab. We have a PI working on a SARS-CoV-2 study with Retrovirox, very famous viral research company in San Diego, and we are getting ready to put Vymune up against the SARS-CoV-2 to get the real number of reduction. It's suggestive that it's higher than we thought, but we'll know this probably in about 4 to 5 weeks. So that's what we're engaged in now, is additional study on SARS-CoV-2.
And when you take a look, you know, we believe that this will really be kind of a first tier COVID toolbox application. But, you know, when you take a look at efficacy across the board as a broad spectrum antiviral, it makes sense because Vymune has been in clinical trials and research trials against other pandemics. N1H1. Cynthia, what are the other pandemics that we've tested against?
We went up against global pandemic H3N2 Hong Kong flu from 1968. It was a global pandemic, killed millions of people. We were able to acquire that virus, and we were very successfully reduced the neuraminidase down to practically zero. So had it been available then, Vymune would have been able to reduce that virus significantly.
So look, even if you look at it as a first part of the toolkit of COVID-19, of immediately getting in and reducing viral RNA. And we're not making any claims that it's a COVID killer, but we do think, based on this proprietary amino acid formulation that we have, 10 years in development, that we will be effective in part of the COVID toolkit. It's a broad spectrum antiviral and it's natural. So you take a look at the pushback from a lot of people on the vaccine, I have a daughter who is completely, anti-vaccine, and I don't encourage her to do that, but there are millions of people out there who are saying, I'm not going to be the first one out there to get this vaccine. If we show efficacy, it could be the difference between a lower scale COVID and hospital on a ventilator. And that's really where we think this kind of fits into place.
Absolutely. I know Los Angeles just received their first 84,000 units of the Pfizer vaccine by cold storage, which is another kind of advantage to your product. And I think it ships room temperature, is my understanding. And I do understand that the market is uncertain of taking this rapidly approved vaccine, to say the least. And let's talk. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is a lozenge. It's a lozenge, a melt away that you suck until it dissolves. It's not a drug. It's not a shot. It's a good tasting berry melt away that you put between your cheek and your gum and it melts. And Cynthia, explain how that gets into the system.
It's a melt away by design, because when viruses are not living organisms. They're just merely a piece of protein with a viron attached. So they, in and of themselves, cannot infect you. They have to gain access to one of your cells in order to be effective and in order to duplicate and spread. So, lost my train of thought here. What was your question, Steve?
Explain how it gets in through the system.
Exactly. So the very first place the virus migrates when it enters your body, it will enter through nose, mouth, eyes sometimes, is the epithelium in your throat and nose. And there it's going to start staging itself in order to spread. And it stages for a while there and then starts entering cells and then begins to spread. By design, we are a melt-away because it gets absorbed immediately into the epithelium and can start knocking the virus down right away. So you can chew this tab. It's no issue. It'll go through the metabolic process. It just will take longer to come back to the virus. So by melting it, it gets into the epithelium, starts working right away.
I was actually going to ask about that. That's a really interesting piece of the puzzle. A berry flavored melts away tab, and you discussed somebody who was already experiencing COVID-19 symptoms that did take Vymune, and that's obviously an immunosuppressed individual. But this is safe for elderly, children, pregnant women. This is just because it's natural. This is safe for all sorts of people. Is that right?
Yes, and what's unique about this product, in order for these 3 amino acids to do their work in knocking down viruses, there are certain bioflavonoids and cofactors required. These are vitamins, minerals, bioflavonoids that have to be present with these 3 aminos to extend their reach and range throughout the body. So that's what gives us a superior immune support. But this product does not need the immune system to work on a virus. It goes right to the virus on its own without the immune system, particularly for immune suppressed, and it starts knocking it down in the cell.
And this doesn't this doesn't, kind of cover up symptoms. It gets in and works on the virus.
No, I think that's an incredibly important part. Are you addressing the symptoms of cause? So thanks for sharing that, Steve and Cynthia. That makes sense from a scientific breakdown why the melt away was a design choice, and how you can really rapidly target the virus. And I didn't actually realize that it can, because it doesn't really involve the immune system so much. That's how you're able to work with the immunocompromised. That's very, very interesting. And I know we had mentioned, a couple of other players in the space, specifically Tamiflu being one of the, the kind of the larger revenue producing players in the space. Let's talk about those scientifically proven results really quickly. Vymune has been proven to ensure quick resolution of viral illnesses. Can we talk a little bit about the difference from a timeline standpoint between a Vymune and other players in the space?
Well, it's similar to what we just said. Tamiflu will stop a 7-day flu infection by only 6.5 hours. So you still have to put up with that infection for 6+ days. And Vymune, as we just said, what we just explained is how quickly it gets to the virus. This is the reason why it can work quicker than going through the metabolic process or the drug path to knock down the virus.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to, it's just so impressive. So from a time perspective, how quickly, are you seeing that Vymune can stop the virus?
We can stop influenza in 24 to 48 hours. We can stop the common cold in 48 hours. The common cold is actually harder to reduce than the flu. We also have been very effective at reducing the herpes strain, which, by the way, is a DNA virus, not an RNA virus. But we've been very successful at reducing herpes as well as non-polio enteroviruses. These are smaller viruses. They often hit in the summer. Sometimes you might hear someone refer to that they have a summer cold. It's not really a cold, it's an enterovirus. And we've been very successful at reducing those in around 12 hours.
Yeah, that's really interesting. All compared to the over 154 hours for a Tamiflu. So you're in the single and the double digits versus the triple digits, which really could be all the difference for people experiencing those symptoms.
Yes.
Thanks for that, team. I'd love to remind. Please continue to use the Q&A functionality. We want to keep this as interactive as possible. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll just continue to chug along here. We did discuss kind of the exit opportunities. We talked about the pharmaceutical component. As you work your way to the OTC market, is there a plan to get to the point where it's full prescription, or that is not part of the plan at all?
It's never going to be a prescription drug because it's all natural, but it will be granted an over-the-counter name, which means that it's an over-the-counter drug like Bayer aspirin. So you don't need a prescription, but we can make drug claims that allows us to tell you what it does on the antiviral side. Currently, our label is talking about the superior immune support and all of how quickly it activates the immune system and puts it in a state of readiness. And so all of that is the label currently, but the side effect will be antiviral activity, which once we get that approval, either the emergency use, which may come in a few months, or the OTC approval, we can now tell you that it stops viruses. But we also, just to that point, we expect when the product is on Amazon.com, many users and our own, as Steve mentioned earlier, evangelizers, people really evangelize over this product when they see the relief they get, will tell that story for us, the viral story.
Ross just asked, is it a pill or a liquid? These are the actual meltaways. So you can see they're like a lozenge. This is actually the old packaging that has been around for a long time. The new bottle is, if you go on the Net Capital site, you can see what the new bottle looks like, and Cynthia may have one there. But look, there's simple melt-away lozenges. There it is.
Yep, Great question, Ross. And that really leads to how it can be so effective is that strategy for melt away. So that's really interesting. Awesome. We got some thanks coming in. Please continue to use Q&A. Chat is fine as well, but definitely Q&A is preferred. So that's really exciting. So tell us, a lot of exciting things coming through with the Amazon partnership, working with the marketing team and distribution. It sounds like it'll be relatively available soon. What are some other things, as you're working towards OTC in 2021 that you could share with potential investors about why now is the time to invest?
Steve, do you want to take that?
Sure. Look, this product is coming to market in February. And we think, Ogilvy, based on their launch strategy, feels that they are going to sell out, very quickly of the first, 25,000 units. As an investor in a lot of different companies, I look at several different metrics in terms of, valuation, right time to invest. And, one of the metrics is on growth, so if you take a look, assuming through Ogilvy and based on, the betas and the testimonials that we have, assume that we're going to get, strong order growth trajectory right from the very beginning. Well, from a valuation standpoint, if you can show hockey stick growth, we go from ordering 25,000 to 100,000 to 250,000 to 500,000. The first 25,000 units will generate 500,000 of revenues. So this thing is going to scale, we believe, very quickly. And when you have quick scalability, you're also going to have, rapid growth in valuation. So look, we feel that there's tremendous upside, tremendous potential to the growth of this product. We think that when this starts to roll, it's going to be like a big snowball going downhill. It's going to have tremendous momentum. We're going to have a great story to tell that I think is going to benefit the investors.
And there's one other point to that. You have to consider that this is the first and only known broad spectrum antiviral anywhere. So you get in on the ground floor of a groundbreaking product. How often do you get to be in the room on the very first step of a brand new product that doesn't exist in the world? So that's the opportunity as well.
The other thing that I do want to mention is the 24 patents, are really, really important. And when Cynthia, tell them the story about how you hired the patent firm and the range that we have protected to literally give us a proprietary formulation against competitors.
Yes, in the lab, when we realized what we had developed, that we had found the first and only known broad spectrum antiviral, we knew we had to protect it. We found this early on, but then we took 10 years to prove it. But we went to a firm, a law firm that has the best reputation for breaking patents. So if you're a small company like we are at the time and still are, we would have a difficult time trying to defend this patent if it wasn't constructed properly. So they used all the tricks and techniques and weaknesses that they use to break patents, and they constructed our patents and filled all of those gaps. So we have very strong patents. They also told us to keep the patents open, and they're monitoring any incoming threats to our patents. And we also have some claims that we haven't added yet that we can bring forth, add, and set a new patent underway so that we can protect against anyone that's trying to come after us. Our patents also cover the delivery mechanism as well as our 10-compound formula. And as Steve mentioned, it also covers the patent range. So for instance, we may need 3 grams of one of our compounds, but our range is protected from 1 to 5. So any interloper that might try to even copy us by going outside of the patent range would never get the efficacy they need to stop a virus.
That was incredibly important. I think, thank you so much for taking a deep dive on the kind of the breadth of intellectual property. And that was sounded like mostly utility patents. Any design patents implemented here as part of the IP strategy?
Well, we have trademarks, but mostly protecting the formulation.
Through utility. No, that sounds great. So you got the brand protected through trademarks, and then you have the actual function utility protected through those patents. That's incredibly important. Love to see more engagement here. So from one of the attendees, this is a natural supplement product. So is daily use recommended only when exposed to a virus or symptomatic, or how many doses before any relief or efficacy of the product? Thanks for asking.
It's best, you can take one tablet a day just to provide some protection during perhaps a time like COVID. But the formulation to stop a virus requires 4 of the meltaways and taken every 8 hours for 3 days, and that will stop the virus. So you have the opportunity to take one a day for generalized protection of any incoming virus. But if you really need full protection because you have now become ill, you have to move to the 4 tabs, 8 hours, 3 days, up to 3 days.
Definitely, that was helpful. Thanks for asking that question. So some prevention, and then when you're experiencing, you ramp up the dosage a little bit more.
Yes, there's one more thing I should mention. It is good to also take it if you at first symptom or at first suspected exposure to a viral infection. So if you can take it at first suspected exposure, like being on an airplane and someone's coughing, you can just take 1 full dose, and that should take care of that virus that you've likely been exposed to before you're symptomatic.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. And we have some more coming in here. How do you update doctors who say there is nothing to take when it's viral? That's a really good question, Ross.
Well, they are right. There is nothing to stop viruses at this point except Vymune. Doctors certainly are not aware of it at this point, but we intend to do some meetings where we go to some of their conventions, their continuing education seminars, and present the product at that point down the road.
So there definitely will be some type of an educational component. I think that's a really good point, Ross. If it's a bacterial infection, you got to use antibiotics, and then if they believe it's viral, oftentimes they tell you there's nothing we could do and recommend something over the counter to just basically treat the symptoms. So it sounds like there will be an educational effort to bring out the American medical system up to speed about Vymune. We're coming towards the end of our time here. If there are no more questions coming in, I'm pretty old school. I like to do closing remarks. So I'm not sure, Steve and Cynthia, if there are any closing remarks you'd like to share with the attendees at this time.
I'll just say that from an investment standpoint, I'm really excited about Vymune. I think that even notwithstanding the investment, this product is really a critical product for the time that we're in. It is something that has been clinically proven, shows efficacy, reduces viral RNA, and is something that we need desperately now. And so there's an entire humanistic element to this. And Cynthia didn't tell the story about her sister, but and I'll let her explain that, but this 10-year journey started when her sister got an autoimmune disease, and Cynthia decided that she was going to do a deep dive, and 10 years later, you got Vymune. And so, I think it's such an important product for the time. And so we're really excited about the launch of the product.
Cynthia, would you like to add anything on our way out? We'd love to hear a little bit more about that story if you're open to sharing.
Well, yes, as I said, I was a new product development executive and a marketing executive in fintech and telecom. So I was used to developing, taking complex technologies and turning them into easy to use consumer products. My sister called me and told me that she had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder that was destroying her organs, and there was no cure, but she was given organ transplant drugs to stop her immune system from attacking her body. But without an immune system, she was told that she would have to incubate from November to April. And this was more than 10 years ago. We all know what that feels like now. And that was to avoid viral infections because there was no cure for even the common cold. Any viral infection could kill her. I was really surprised to hear that. So I thought at that time, my company was being acquired by another company, and I had the option to take the golden parachute package or go with the acquiring company. And given my background with new product development and given her circumstance, I decided to take the package and find an antiviral that would help her reclaim her life. At the time, she was a college administrator and she had to give up her career. And so that was the motivation to start looking for a broad spectrum antiviral. And what I found was science has been looking for 90 years and no one has ever been able to find one, for a simple reason that science has been able to find something to kill the virus, but it also kills the cell. A virus has to be housed in a cell. So if you kill human cells, you kill the human. But what's interesting is our product is amino acid based. And that virus at its basis was made by an amino acid, as was the cell it's trying to inhabit. So it's a natural process to create an amino acid formulation that can safely enter the cell, downgrade the virus, and not harm the cell. And so that's the magic formula to Vymune. And it took a couple of years to discover that. But then we were off to the races with our scientific team in creating the product.
I do think it's important also, and Cynthia will never mention this, but Cynthia's invested $1.3 million of her own capital in this over a 10-year period. So she stepped up, she hired the scientists, she hired the doctors, she really was committed, to finding this broad spectrum antiviral. So, she has committed 10 years of her life and a lot of her personal capital, to this project.
Thanks for sharing that, you both. It's great to hear such passionate team members and founders. It's great to hear about investors that have been part of the journey for quite a while and still very enthusiastic about the prospect. And great to hear that you both have skin in the game to participate in the upside, but also that you believe in this so much that you're willing to kind of take those risks internally. So I really appreciate both those ending stories. I'm so glad I asked. I'm so grateful that you were willing to share. If there's nothing else, I just want to thank so much for all the attendees that joined. Again, this is recorded and it will be uploaded to the Net Capital YouTube account. And I'd like to thank our panelists, Cynthia and Steve. Thank you for taking the time and sharing a little bit about your product and your company, Vymedic. And I'm really grateful that you are working with Net Capital on your fundraise. And I'm very happy to be a small piece of the puzzle as you continue to grow. So thank you so much to everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.